So this was, so, you know, we started with the Courier Mail last Friday, talking about kids being groomed without parental consent. Saturday, the Weekend Australian, these heartbreaking stories. Then on Tuesday, the lawyer Belle Lane and law professor Patrick Parkinson warned that what LGBTQI plus child gender clinics might be doing to children in terms of prescribing puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and even surgery on minors could be the biggest medical scandal in 100 years. Tell us about what Belle Lane, the lawyer, is warning the family court in publishing this paper.
Yeah, look, it's really, really disturbing. It's a long report, but it's saying the things that you and I and others have been saying for a long time too, Lyle. And just on the back of that the parents are saying that most of these children, and even school staff are saying, most of these children are not thriving. They've got underlying issues that are not being addressed. And that paper, the legal paper by Belle and Patrick, are basically indicating the same thing, that the family courts made a decision years ago that if all the parents and everyone's on board, then the children can go ahead and go down those pathways of medication. But the science tells us something completely different. These drugs are being used off-label. They're not prescribed for these purposes at all. They're not tested, or there's been no rigorous research and the consequences of long-term use on these. Then you've got the things that we do know about, which is the causing of sterility, no sexual function, brain and bone development issues. One parent was talking in the paper about cholesterol, high cholesterol that their child will now have to deal with. There's many, many complications, and the lawyers, rightly so, are pointing out that these decisions are being made, you know, in a legal context, but there's very serious medical consequences, and it is going to be incredible, the fallout from this, that people are going to have to live with serious harm done to their physical bodies that cannot be repaired.
Yeah, well, we already know of one lawsuit here in Sydney that has been brought against, I think, a psychiatrist for putting them on the pathway towards this sort of so-called medical treatment. And as Patrick Parkinson says in that paper, or in the commentary around that paper, the lawsuits are only going to intensify. So that was the news up till about Tuesday. Then on Wednesday of this week, the Sydney Morning Herald, of all papers, of the Nine stable, reported that the insurance giant MDA National, one of Australia's four major medical indemnity providers, announced they will no longer provide insurance cover for doctors who provide medical transitioning treatments for children under 18. Kirralie, is this the beginning of the end for the LGBTIQA plus political movement's gender fluid indoctrination of children?
Well, let's hope so. I mean, we've seen it in the UK and other nations, you know, with Keira Bell, who was really able through her lawsuit to pause all of the gender treatments for under 18s. And, you know, like that insurer said, you know, how do you measure the regret? What sort of monetary value can you put on the regret of a girl having her breasts removed, or, you know, boys having no sexual function as adults? We can't measure that. It is incomprehensible, and so it's a great move by that insurer, and let's hope that others follow suit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if a medical indemnity insurance company will now no longer insure doctors, should the education department also be worried? I mean, by allowing LGBTQI plus activists into schools, which is what they're doing, along with curriculum teaching little children that their gender is fluid, they're feeding the medical machine, and surely they bear culpability for sowing these ideas in the minds of little children. You know, I think the law should go after the education department and the education ministers, the politicians who allow this. This has to be a wake-up call, surely.
I agree, Lyle, and I think we will see this in the coming years as, you know, a generation of young people become adults and realise that they were sold a lie, that they couldn't in fact change their sex, and that they're still struggling with the underlying issues such as autism, depression and other mental health problems, trauma that has not been addressed. They will realise, very unfortunately, that they've compounded those problems by then also medicalising their bodies in a way that cannot be reversed. So I think that the education system and these activists will have a lot to answer for, and I think that the courts will be tied up with this for many years to come.
Yeah, well, it's been an extraordinary week of media. As you and I know, we've been campaigning this space for a long time, just being ignored by the media, but we've had constant daily press in a range of newspapers, and of course the Australian yesterday editorialising that, on Wednesday editorialising that this discussion should be allowed to have. It must not be suppressed anymore, and there's no doubt it has been suppressed.